this experience we're having is not what it seems. And what it seems is what causes our behavior. We're responding to what it seems to be. And so, if we want to know how to interact with life, we have to step back. Because one thing is certain, it's not what it seems to be. Our organs are responding to the circumstances, responding to the environment, responding to the different emotions that are being activated by the narrative. And yet all these are responding to what it seems to be, not to what it is. The one who creates what life seems to be is the same one that's experiencing. The one that creates what life is the source of the one who is experiencing. When we say one is experiencing, it already means that there has been a definition. In the infinite one, we wouldn't even say that there is one experiencing. Everything just is. The one that's experiencing came out of the one that's beyond experience, beyond knowledge, beyond anything that we can imagine. How can we relate to something we can't imagine? By realizing what we're interacting with. The more we realize the power, the more we realize how far he is in reality compared to the way we imagine what he might be. Anything we might imagine cannot even come close to touching the dimensions where the real truth would have to be perceived. The real truth is power beyond limit. Our imagination doesn't know how to draw power without limit. It only experienced power within limit. Our imagination cannot describe potential. It only knows how to draw manifestations. Our imagination does not realize the principles. It only sees the details. The reason life is not the way it seems to be is because we're perceiving from the imagination, an imagination that has been separated from the intelligence. The imagination is drawing without the approval of the intelligence. And this happens through culture. Culture separates the imagination from reality, from the intelligence that lives within that imagination. And the imagination becomes more concerned with fitting into its environment than it is about reattaching to its source, to the one who gives it existence. And so life is not the way it seems because life is intelligent. And we are not experiencing intelligent life. We're experiencing an illusion created by the imagination. We're experiencing it collectively. And yet, it's still fictitious. It was created by humans. It's not based on the ultimate truth. So the fastest way to return from the world of illusion to the world of intelligence is to return to silence. In silence, the one who is imagining ceases to imagine and therefore finds himself within the truth. As long as there isn't silence, the principles guiding what's being experienced are causing a separation from reality. Unless the principles have been refined to the degree of prophecy. Prophecy is the ability to come forward from the silence with specific forms, with specific information, and yet not leave reality. Anything short of prophecy and something within that manifestation is not accurate and therefore demonic. Demonic simply meaning it doesn't have human intelligence. It wasn't designed to help us and support us. Helping us and supporting us is a divine mission, because the one who created all has an interest in what he created. And so anything that helps us is considered to be an angel belonging to the worlds of holiness, the worlds of truth, the worlds of existence. Anything that becomes an obstacle to humanity becomes demonic, impure, and therefore we want to learn how to avoid it. Because it frustrates the divine will of creating what we're witnessing that he wants to create. And we're also witnessing that somehow he's not managing to express that intention through us. There's a frustration between what wants to be expressed and our capacity to receive, our capacity to understand, our capacity to surrender to what is. So as long as the imagination thinks that it knows better than what is, what should be, it's not studying reality, and therefore it's not making progress. It's not becoming better. It becomes better when it realizes that the intelligence is the one that's creating reality, and therefore the imagination is meant to draw only in a way that will align it with the intelligence. The imagination cannot revolt against the intelligence because it has no life of its own. It's not a being. It doesn't exist. How we use our organs, how we use our biology, how we use our brain, how we use our heart, how we move the life force within the organs. Just like when we think about our toes and we wiggle them, we're moving the organs from within perception, from within our imagination. So too, every time we're imagining, we're moving the life force within our organs. We're moving the life force within our brain. We're moving the life force within our heart. Every time we feel, we're moving the life force. Wherever we move the life force develops the organ. In whatever movement we do, that's the direction of the development. There are places within our organs that can give us great joy, great peace, great security. And yet we've forgotten how to move the life force, move the spirit into those areas. This is what the Torah wants to remind us. So by the imagination drawing the correct drawings, the spirit, the life force moves within the organs and creates the experience that we're having. This movement is a miraculous movement. It's not something that can be explained. This is a function that relates to the spiritual dimensions. It's not something that we can find in the physical dimensions. And this is why, even though this is what makes us the most precious, this is what gives the most value to the human soul, is the development of the organs from within. Because it happens in such an invisible way, we tend to give importance, to give value, to make precious things that are outside of us, that can be observed by the senses, that can be owned, that can be possessed and that can possess us. But they're not the true value of our nature. Those are things that impress the imagination, but they're not rooted in the reality of the life force. They're not rooted in intelligence. They're not improving the intelligence. And therefore, they're an obstacle. They're an obstacle to the intelligence if they're not helping it develop. Uniting the imagination with the intelligence is uniting creation with the Creator. We ourselves are characters in what we might call the Creator's imagination. Just like we, in our individual imagination, have lost the proper access to the intelligence that makes us imagine, so too, on the collective level, the imagination is drawing realities not in direct communication with the intelligence that should be in charge of those realities. And this is because we, humans, are a link in that chain of command. The communication between the intelligence and the imagination of the collective flows through us. This is why we can see calamities that are not related directly to our behaviors, at least not from a physical perspective, and yet we know through the tradition of the wise that everything that happens, especially when there are calamities on the collective level. They all relate to human behavior, to human translation of reality, to human commands to the collective force. We are constantly commanding the life force. Every command has consequences beyond what we can imagine. And so in order to make it fair, the general rule is simple. Good is good and bad is bad. But then once humans got involved, humans are very clever, and then things got very complicated. Sometimes good is bad, sometimes bad is good. And so it's no longer as simple as it should have been intuitively. The way we were designed was very simple. The practical reality, not simple at all. The way we were designed was very intuitive. Take our intuition away, and we were like blind people that are trying to find a needle in a haystack. And so when we bring our imagination back to the meeting place that has been designated for it, where it can meet the intelligence, which is in silence, we're also awakening within the collective a return towards the intelligence, a return towards the original intention, a return to awaken the owner, that he should take ownership over what's his. And this becomes evident when we see that as a result, we awaken the attribute of compassion. Compassion is the identity of the owner. If we woke up the owner, then there will be compassion. If the imagination has found intelligence, then there will be compassion. If the imagination has lost intelligence, there will be judgment. Judgment is when the imagination has lost access to intelligence. It no longer knows what the purpose is, where it's trying to lead the life force, where is it sending it, what commands is it sending into the collective, what does it want to bring upon itself, upon humanity, upon reality. When the imagination loses touch with intelligence, it sends all kinds of dangerous commands. And yet, the human heart gets authenticated and the commands have an effect. There are different protective mechanisms that protect the deeper realms of reality from being contaminated by humans who have evil intent. Because if humans with evil intent would somehow enter those spiritual levels, they would bring destruction to places that have very far-reaching consequences. And so only the most purified, only the most aligned can gain access to the higher realms where the individual will and the collective will merge as one. So unite your sides of the spirit. Unite the imagination, which is mostly arising from the animal spirit, with the intelligence that comes forth from the speaking spirit, the Nefesh HaMedaberes, the intelligence that is a child of the intelligence that created all.